Now, I know some people will pick apart my reason for choosing this specific video. The woman in this video was caught out abstracting electricity for whatever reason, but that does not mean that she should be treated with any less respect from the police, and it does not mean that all of her rights go out of the window. This video is solely being used for educational purposes, for comment and critique, and to help others understand their rights in similar situations.
So just to let you know, I've had 6 officers break into my home with 2 British gasmen.
There's only 4 of us, there's not 6.
There's 4 police officers and 2 men who claim to be from British Gas who refuse to give their identity.
You've got one of their ID badges.
The police are actually assisting them in illegal operations. It is illegal to break into somebody's home unless it is in order to save somebody who's not in safety, so they've broken every rule in the book.
Now, to be fair, there are other reasons that give police the power to force entry to a property, such as Section 17 of PACE, the powers of entry to arrest, save life or prevent damage. In other words, if they have a warrant of arrest, or if they're chasing a suspect and they enter a property, they also have powers to enter under the Animal Welfare Act 2006 to prevent harm to animals and some others, but it's clear in this scenario that none of those are the reasons stated under the Section 17 of PACE are applicable here. In fact, Section 17 of PACE doesn't even mention forcing entry to assist with the service of a warrant either. I think we all know by now the police are only in attendance at the serving of a warrant to prevent a breach of the peace, which, for avoidance of doubt and as laid out in the police's national legal database, is where harm is done or is likely to be done to a person or property in their presence, or they are in fear of being harmed through assault, affray, riot or other disturbance. Other than that, the police cannot get involved unless another criminal offence is committed by someone during this scenario in question. However, police almost always seem to overlook offences made by the companies and target the member of the public instead.
I've got all of their names and their numbers. This police officer in particular has accused me of, what was the word she used, assaulting her, because my elbow touched her shoulder.
No, it was actually the top of my head.
Oh, the top of your head. Oh, I'm so sorry. When I leaned over in my own house to see how many people had barged into my home. She's rather gobby, this one.
Now, you will notice as we go through the video how much of a petulant child this female plod is, probably feeling tough because she's surrounded by 4 men and thinks she can get away with speaking to a member of the public like shite, which, although is not breaking the law, is a breach of the police's code of ethics and their professional behaviour, namely authority, respect and courtesy and conduct.
And this man here is refusing to give his name or his ID, which is also illegal, and he's the one that came to me this morning, refusing to give any identification. And his accomplice is under the stairs putting in meters, again, all completely unlawful. They have refused to show a warranty with wet ink. They tried showing it and reading it from a little iPhone, which is, again, unlawful, because there is no such thing as a legal contract or one of those, what's it called, Mandy? When they try and break into your home?
Get the common law book.
What's it called?
Consult it.
Like it or not, and I know some of you won't, a warrant can be served digitally, although you are, as far as I'm aware, entitled to a copy for yourself, so you should be shown a paper copy that's signed for your own records. However, I know a lot of people claim there needs to be a wet ink signature. I don't believe that a photocopy of the warrant is unlawful, providing it has all the details of the warrant on there and is still signed so that you can confirm the warrant. I also don't believe that the signature has to be written, by which I mean a magistrate or justice of the peace could have a rubber stamp with their signature, and providing they stamp it with their own signature, it's lawful. Maybe the Black Belt barrister can confirm this, although I don't think he approves of my videos, so doesn't watch them, but I'm going to put that out there anyway.
Take your pettiness and shove it where the sun doesn't shine. Okay?
Cheers, darling. Thank you for the advice. I needed that.
Good.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Because knowing I actually think is paramount to most human beings.
Indeed, I'm quite
Good. And there's, for a man who's standing there trying to intimidate a woman by his snide remarks isn't going to work, I'm afraid.
I'm replying to you as good as I
You
get.
did not reply to me. You actually made a statement.
You need to consult common law, I understand that. You need to consult the common law.
No, you told me to get my common law book out in a snide way. I'm not stupid, I'm not an imbecile, and I do not want to be intimidated by somebody or the likes of a man who can't even provide his ID.
6119, again, I'm giving you my ID number. So
I want your name, not your ID number.
No, I need to give you my ID number.
You're refusing to give your name, and the police have all allowed you to break into my home, and we don't even have a name. You've got sunglasses on earlier and a mask over your face, and no name. No name.
I don't believe there's anything in the legislation under the Rights of Entry, Gas and Electricity Boards Act 1954 that provides the agent working on behalf of the energy company to give that ID. I have looked and I can't find it, but I do know there is a Powers of Entry Code of Practice which came into force on the 6th of April 2015. This document explains how a power of entry is a statutory right for a person, usually a state official, police, local authority, trading standards for example, or enforcement staff of a regulatory body, to legally enter defined premises such as businesses, vehicles or land for a specific purpose. But this must protect the rights of the individual under the Protection of Freedoms Act 2012, which I'm not going to get into in this video. The Code of Practice for Powers of Entry, I'll link to in the description, states that on arrival at a premises, the authorised person exercising the power of entry should make reasonable attempts to make contact with the occupier of the premises or the person appearing to be in charge of them, unless doing so would frustrate the purpose of entry. He or she should show them suitable identification and explain in straightforward language the purpose of the visit and their powers. Simply giving an ID number based on this code of practice isn't sufficient, as it's not suitable, in my opinion.
I'm not assaulting you. My hand accidentally touched your bun.
And excuse me, police officer, can you please ask this man to stop trying to escalate the situation and actually make it worse than it is? Because I think that's your responsibility to keep the peace in this house.
Yeah, the peace,
So
the
can you
peace
please-
is being kept, isn't it?
So can
No
you
one's
please
been
ask-
assaulted. No, there's no damage being done.
Well, I am assaulting your woman, apparently. This police officer keeps accusing me of assaulting her.
Man, while he's in this house, to keep his mouth shut.
Fair play to the copper for understanding what a breach of the peace is. It's just a shame that the definition is only applicable when they want it to be. Otherwise, they simply use breach of the peace for a whole host of non-breach of the peace. Also, I'm going to be skipping ahead a few minutes because I'm using this video for commentary and review purposes, and if there are long gaps of me not commenting, then it could be deemed copyright infringement, so I will link to the original video in the description.
I'm a living woman, and that in itself is illegal. Go back to your director or your sergeant or whoever it is and explain to him that you're all breaking the law. They're aware of the situation, so they should know better then. Have they not read up on this matter? Excuse me, please. Excuse me, please. Excuse me, please. Excuse me, please. Are you going to hold me prisoner in my kitchen?
You can go out into your living room, can't you?
I beg your pardon?
You could go out into your living room.
Why do I want to go in my living room?
But why do you want to come into the hallway?
They've broken... This is not for real. They've broken into my home and asked me why I want to go into my hallway.
I should note that I don't know who made entry, whether it was the police or a locksmith. However, the Code of Practice for Powers of Entry state that reasonable efforts should also be made to obtain the consent of the landowner or occupier unless obtaining consent would frustrate the purpose of the exercise, for example by causing undue delay. It is important that consent is informed and that the occupier is notified about the purpose of the visit and for exercising the powers of entry and associated powers, what these powers are and how they will be used. Where consent is sought but not obtained, the occupier refuses or obstructs entry, contact could not be established with the occupier or the premises were unoccupied at the time. Authorised persons should record their attempts to obtain consent as a matter of good practice. The Rights of Entry, Gas and Electricity Boards 1954 states that no right of entry to which this Act applies shall be exercisable in respect of any premises except A, with consent given by or on behalf of the occupier of the premises, or under the authority of a warrant granted under the next following section, provided that this section shall not apply where entry is required in case of an emergency. The Gas Act 1986, regulations made under it or any other enactment relating to gas, Schedule 6 of the Electricity Act 1989, and any local enactment relating to gas or electricity. Now, in my interpretation, this means that unless there is an emergency under any of the Gas or Electricity Acts, then there is no right of entry, especially to fit a prepayment meter. I should also point out that a warrant can only be issued by a Justice of the Peace or Magistrate where they are satisfied on sworn information in writing that the admission to the premises specified in the information is reasonably required by the gas operator or an electricity operator or by an employee of a gas operator or an electricity operator. That the operator or any employee of the operator, as the case may be, would, apart from the preceding section, be entitled for that purpose to exercise in respect of the premises a right of entry to which this Act applies, and that the requirements, if any, of the relevant enactment have been complied with. This means that, considering prepayment meters cannot be forced on everyone, the Justice of the Peace or Magistrate must believe, that, based on evidence, that there is an immediate danger with the equipment, or that they have seen evidence that the person whose home is to be entered isn't one who falls into the category of those who a prepayment meter would be unsafe for. I'll explain more about that later.
Can I get through, please?
No, because they're doing work.
Can I get through, please?
You may prevent them from doing their work. So
Can I get through,
as
please?
part of the breach of a peace. You can go into the living room. You can go into the kitchen.
That's not my living room, all right?
That's not your living room.
That's not my living room. Can I go?
then?
It's none of your business what that is.
Conversation.
No, I'm not having a conversation. I'm not happy about this, okay? I'm meant to be with a client now, an elderly lady who I'm meant to be with, and instead I've got 6 people barging into my home, breaking my door down, changing the meters unlawfully.
The door was not damaged. My locksmith unlocked it professionally.
So you broke it into my property professionally?
No, actually use a slip, so it didn't manufacture a lock. Use a slip.
So you've made entry without my permission. That is unlawful. Do you not know that that is unlawful, guys?
Not with the warrants.
I should also note that the legislation provided for permission to be granted by the homeowner or landowner, which I believe means that if you reside there as a tenant, then a landlord can give permission for them to enter. But of course, you should be made aware of that still by the company trying to contact you first, or via your landlord in advance of it happening.
How long is this going to take?
An hour and a half.
An hour and a half of the police time.
We need to provide all of the warrant.
Unlawful. Completely and totally unlawful.
Right, I'm going through there. If she escapes, could you please?
Just keep your door shut.
I will try,
Yeah.
but she is a bit of an escapee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he does do a statement.
So, if anyone's jumped onto this, I've got 4 police officers here and 2 men from British Gas. Unlawfully entered my property, and Mr. Excuse me, would you stop taking up my hallway, because I'm going to get really irritated with you in a minute. Could you get out of the way, please, so I can move in my own home?
You can move behind me, but you're not.
Do not tell me I can move behind me. Do you understand me? Would you please move out of my hallway? I am trying to walk through my home. And Mr. No Name here, who is refusing to give his name. So there's no police on the streets. Would you stop leaning into me? Every time I try and move, you're leaning your body into me. Would you stop it? Or I will arrest you, citizen's arrest for abuse.
Now, I know this lady's angry, and it's easy to say things in anger that don't make sense. And for avoidance of doubt, a citizen's arrest can only be performed by a member of the public against someone who's committing an offence at the time, and that offence would go before a judge and jury. So an indictable offence, not a summary offence or common assault.
Could you move out the way so I can walk through? Why not?
Because we've already told you we're here to prevent the breach of the peace. If you go past me, there's going to
Breach
be
the what peace? What peace?
You're
The
gonna let
peace
the
that
cat out
you've
the door.
walked into my house and broken the door in to get into my property.
We haven't.
You have entered my property without permission. That in itself is unlawful. The lot of you are breaking the law. The lot of you are breaking the law. And don't worry, this will be dealt with in the right hands.
Is it on Facebook? Is that Facebook, is it? It's going on Facebook. Right. Oh.
Yeah, great. Ah, great. Ah. She got 4 police and 2 gas men walk through her door without permission and change her meters without her permission, unlawfully. Ah, thank God for Facebook, hey?
Have you told Facebook that you've been bypassing the electricity and abstracting?
Now, of course, bypassing the meter is a criminal offence under the Theft Act 1968, which says a person who dishonestly uses, without due authority or dishonestly causes to be wasted or diverted any electricity, shall on conviction of indictment be liable to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 5 years. Of course, I'm not condoning the theft of electricity or gas for that matter, and this video is not about condoning any illegal activities. It's simply to comment on and give viewers an insight into how the organisations act and how the police will act with members of the public. There's absolutely nothing to suggest in this video that she had a crop on the go in her loft, only that she had been abstracting electricity, which in the current climate is understandable. Understandable, not lawful. But I found nothing that would indicate that a person who has committed the offence of abstracting electricity must go onto a prepayment meter. As far as I'm aware, the energy companies can only make entry to ensure that the supply and meter are safe. Now, this would come under the powers of forced entry if the homeowner or resident refused them access. Normally, however, when the offence is uncovered, the police will call a gas or electrician out to make it safe at the time. This appears to have been after the event, which is a little unusual. In the normal circumstances, the police would call the engineer whilst they're there, and admission to the property wouldn't need a warrant, as the police are there under their warrant and powers of entry and have a legal obligation to ensure that the supply is safe. Therefore, the engineer can simply walk in while the police are there and make the meter safe.
Electricity and abstracting.
Oh, yes, I have, and I've got it all recorded on YouTube as well. You can go onto my YouTube channel.
Are you famous?
All of it. No, I'm not famous, but you are, sweetheart. Especially your bun that I've been, what is it you said I've been doing? Molesting you or something?
Those words don't come out my mouth. I said you assaulted me.
Assaulted you. I assaulted your bun.
No, when
Ooh, this is the girl that's got the bun that I've been assaulting.
you wouldn't like it if I grabbed hold of your hair, would you?
I did not grab hold of your hair. It's all on video, sweetheart.
Quiet. No one wants to hear you anymore.
Gee, get out of my house.
No.
Get out of my house. Get out of my house now. I have every right to push the lot of you out of my home.
Oh, she really is arrogant, isn't she? I understand a resident is probably doing their head in, but there is no respect or courtesy being shown by this one.
I am in my legal right to use the same force that you would use to get you out of my home. In fact, I'm in my right to get a milk bottle full of milk and throw it at you.
If you do that,
Did you know
you're
that?
arrested, okay?
How old are you? 12?
Old enough to be in the job. Yeah, 1,500. Okay.
Yeah, corporate bullies. Yeah, the sad thing is, guys, that these police don't know the law, and they look. To be fair, they don't look much more than 16, and they don't actually know the law. And hopefully, when they do realise the law, they will remember today, because I doubt many people in St Albans have actually done this. So they probably haven't got much experience in dealing with the law, the real law. And they don't realise they're breaking the law. No, they don't know the law. They don't know the law at all. They're breaching their oaths right now. Right in my hallway, you guys are breaching your oaths and you don't even realise it.
Or maybe they do.
Well,
Or maybe they do realise it.
well, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? You know, makes you wonder.
I wouldn't like to make an assumption that they don't know that they're...
Well, I think I would imagine, I mean, I've always been a big fan of the police working in their integrity. Yeah, I think they're just very young and ignorant, unfortunately.
She's not wrong. Some of the police these days look like they've just walked out of junior school and into a uniform, and it's obvious that many have zero life skills or life experience.
And can you believe it, guys, to top it off, this is the man that gets moved more than anyone. The man that actually tried to gain access to my home is refusing to give his name. I mean, you can't get much more unlawful than that. He's got a great big face covering so you can't see who he is. And he won't give his name. And the police let him in. They let him break into my home. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Okay, now some of you might say I picked the wrong video to use to do this, seeing as the woman was caught abstracting electricity, but my point in this video isn't about the moral compass of somebody stealing electricity. It's solely being used to help explain the legislation and code of practice for forced entry to property. This video isn't really about the police either, although there are some factors that relate to them. This is being used to explain, hopefully, your rights and the processes that should be followed. These are also my interpretations and should not be taken as legal advice, so you should always seek your own independent legal advice if you find yourself in a similar situation. But as far as I'm aware, there are situations in which energy companies can forcibly fit prepayment meters. This could well be one of those situations, but I can't say for sure because I don't know the health of the woman who lives at the address. But for some of you being forced onto prepayment meters, you should be aware that there are some reasons why an energy company cannot force you onto a prepayment meter. Those reasons are generally for safety reasons, believe it or not. For example, you can refuse a prepayment meter if you have an illness or disability which makes it difficult for you to top it up. You have an illness or disability which would be made worse if you lose power. You can't afford to top it up. You are pregnant or have children under 5. You can't get to your meter, or you can't get to the shop to buy credit. And if you cannot reasonably be able to get to a shop to get gas or electricity top-ups, then you're likely to run out. Then you should always tell your supplier that you would be in danger of self-disconnecting. You also cannot be forced onto a prepayment meter based on rules by Ofgem if you don't agree that you owe them money and you've told them this. For example, if the debt came from a previous tenant. They haven't offered you other ways to repay money you owe, for example, a repayment plan or payments through your benefits. They come to your home to install a prepayment meter without giving you notice, at least 7 days for gas and 7 days for electricity, or they haven't given you at least 28 days to repay your debt before writing to you to say they want to move you to prepayment. So if and when you do get a knock at the door because they've failed to establish if you fall into one of the categories of people who can't reasonably be expected to use a prepayment meter, then the code of practice for powers of entry come into play, especially if the police are with them. Again, that document is located in the description. Remember that police are only there to prevent a breach of the peace, not to limit your ability to move around your home unless they genuinely believe a breach of the peace would occur. In this case, I would not reasonably believe a breach of the peace would occur because there was several plod in her hallway. The police are to act with respect and courtesy, and in this incident I failed to see, specifically the little short arse, acting with either. In fact, her attitude at times inflamed the situation. Now, regarding the warrant, I don't believe it's unlawful to show a digital copy of the warrant, although I do believe that any warrant should be given to the person being served it. But that warrant can, as far as I'm aware, be a photocopy and doesn't have to be the original document, just that a justice of the peace or magistrates must have signed an original. The justice of the peace or magistrate must have been proven that the warrant was necessary, therefore they should be seeking evidence rather than a spreadsheet with names that the energy company has handed them, as per my previous video about the secret courts for getting warrants rubber stamped in bulk, which must break the law somewhere, as the justice of the peace or magistrate cannot reasonably be sure the warrant is lawful, and so simply signing them off should and must be unlawful too. Therefore, if and when you do get a warrant, you should call the court to try and find out what evidence the company provided the court for them to sign it off. Now, I'm no legal expert and my knowledge is limited, so I'm sure I may have missed some things out in this video, and I'm sure some of you will put me right in the comments, but I thought it important to know some of the legal points where you stand and what is expected of the company and police in a situation such as this. Again, I do not condone the woman abstracting electricity, however that's for her and her conscience, not for me. But even in a situation where someone's abstracting electricity, there are rules and policies in place. And if you fall under one of the exemptions for a meter I previously mentioned, then I don't believe they can install a prepayment meter still. Of course, I'm not giving this information so people can be prepared and lie to energy companies, but remember, even social anxiety can be bad enough to prevent you going to a shop to get a top up if it's bad enough, therefore putting you in danger of not being able to have a supply of gas or electricity. There are far too many people being mugged off by utility companies in these secret courtrooms where a justice of the peace or magistrate simply stamps hundreds of warrants without even looking at them, without seeing evidence that backs up the reason for the warrant. And this needs to stop, as people who really can't manage of a prepayment meter are being forced into having one, sometimes backed up by police who get themselves involved in the execution of the warrant, which is beyond their remit and unlawful for them to do so. So I hope this video has been informative, albeit a long one. I don't get much time to make videos like these very often these days with so many corrupt cops to report on, but if and when I can, I will make videos like this for your information and viewing pleasure.